Hey everyone, Dave here. Today I've got a little project here on my 2010 Audi Q5. We have a driver's side front CV boot that is torn, needs to be replaced. It's not making any noise, but I can see that the boot is torn, so I want to replace it. Just the boot and some fresh grease, and I think I should be all set. Okay, step number one, and please don't forget to do this before you jack the car up and get it up in the air and safely on jack stands and all ready to get to work. First thing we're going to have to do is loosen that center bolt, which is torqued on there very tight. So it's a good idea to break this thing loose before you get the car up in the air. So let me start by doing that. Alright, here we are. Step number one, we've already got a problem. Take this bolt out. On my A4 and S4, this thing fit perfectly. This bolt must be a little bit bigger. Doesn't fit. So now what? So I look around the shop and I've got this little 4 square tool that has a pretty good shank on it, and it just happens that this thing fits perfectly in here. So that's in there. And then I've got a, what is this, 19mm socket, deep socket, 8-point, fits right over that. So now I've got this thing into the bolt, and then I'll just be able to crank it that way. So do whatever you have to do. You might have to go out and get an Allen wrench. I just happen to have this tool. I think I just kind of lucked out. So let's break this thing loose. Alright, so like I said, this thing is very tight in here. So I'm going to put a 3/4 inch ratchet on it and then a little pipe for leverage. And let me see if I can break this loose. And there we go. Alright. So now we can jack the car up and we can do the rest of the work now while the car's in the air. Okay, car's up in the air. Let's get the wheel off. 17mm. And these Audis don't have studs, so I've made this little stud, a faux stud, so I can put it in here. And now when I take this last bolt off, this last stud, the wheel doesn't just fall off, it'll hang on that. So now instead of the whole wheel falling down, alright, let's take this center bolt off. I'm going to take this axle right out of the vehicle and replace this boot on the bench. So the first thing I want to do is take this cover off right here, which is 10mm bolt there, and another one right here. So let's take those two off. We'll take this cover off and it'll give us access to the inner CV boot. Okay, so here's the bolt I'm taking out right there. We got this tool. And then I'm going to put my socket on it along with a big long extension so I can be out here outside. But also, when you try to turn that, the whole axle is going to want to turn. So if you just put a wrench on there and turn, everything's going to turn. So I'm going to take a regular screwdriver and I'm going to stick it right in the brake caliper there. And so now this thing can no longer spin. Now I'm going to reach in there and grab it. And I'm going to do it by hand because I really do not want to strip any of these. So I just want to be careful. I don't want to turn this into a big, huge project. Alright, so I got the screwdriver holding the rotating axle. I'm way out here. And there it is. There it is. So I'm going to continue going around the whole wheel. I think there's 6 of these. We'll take them all out. And then let's see, I believe the driver's side axle is pretty easy to remove. The passenger side is a little bit tighter and more difficult, but I think if we get all these out, I'll be able to get that axle out and we'll bring it over to the bench and then we'll do our work on it there. Alright, there's the 6th one. Alright, I'm going to try to gently hit it with an air hammer and just see if I can break it loose. Just hit it with a blunt tip right on the face of it and it broke it loose. Alright, so here's what I'm looking at now, and I think maybe the passenger side one may have been the easier one to get out, and the driver's side one can be a challenge because this bracket right here is preventing me from sliding this thing over into this cavity where I can push it in and get it out, and I can't get it because I got the frame here and then this bracket here, and I think I got to take those couple of bolts off and swing this thing out of the way to get this axle out, unfortunately, because I can't get it out past this plate. So let's take those bolts out up there and see if we can't, there's another one under here that I can see, maybe just swing this up, get this axle over and push it into that cavity to get it out. Alright, I took a couple of bolts out of this plate now, it moves a little bit. Let me see if I can squeak this axle past it. I don't know if I will or not. Baby. Come on, hey! Alright. Now, hopefully I can pull this axle right out of here. And we can. And there it is. Let me show you what I had to loosen up. Alright, here's a quick peek at what I had to do. I couldn't get the inner CV joint through this area. So there's 2 6mm Allen bolts that I removed here and 1 6mm Allen bolt that I just loosened, and now I'm pivoting this thing on the one loosened bolt, and that was enough to get it out of there. Alright, so here I am at the bench now. This is probably the dirtiest, greasiest job you can have. Every time I do one of these I feel like I need to throw my clothes away. But let's take these clips off and let's take a look at this CV joint. I'll get that off. Come on. There we go. Take a peek inside here. We only got a slight. No, it's just such a mess. Alright, this thing has a retaining clip on it. I think the axle has a groove with a clip in it, and then this thing slips over and it has a groove in it, and then the clip pinches in there as well. We gotta force it off. I mean, I've seen people just bang on this thing with a hammer. I'm going to reuse this CV joint. I don't like banging on things. Let me try something else. Alright, here's what I'm going to try. I'm going to try screwing this original bolt into the CV joint. And now this shaft is far enough away that this bolt will never touch the shaft. But I think if I put something in there like that, and now I tighten it, it'll basically pull on the CV boot, or the CV joint. It makes contact pretty soon. There it is. Alright, so now this bolt is screwing into this outer CV joint, and that fake bolt that I put in there is now touching the end of the axle. So now I'll be pulling this CV joint against the axle, and it should pop out over that ring that's retaining it. I don't know, that didn't feel good. I should have popped out with that much force on it. I'm not sure. Let's try something else. Okay, here's plan B. I'm going to just take this inner race of this CV joint, which has the groove in it, and the clip is sitting in the groove. So this just needs to be forced off. I'm going to take my air hammer and kind of on gentle, I'm going to force it on this inner race, and I'm going to stay away from the cage and all the balls, just that inner race, and just hammer it a little bit. And now it should come off. To remind yourself, you're always wiping your hands off, because every time I walk away from this thing and touch something, there's grease everywhere. So I had this up against it firmly, it wasn't doing nothing. I backed off and let the anvil kind of bounce back and forth, and it started to come right off. There we go. And see, here's the ring right here. Okay, and now we can get this boot completely off. Throw it out, get it away from us, because it's loaded with grease. Okay, and I will tell you that this CV joint wasn't making any noise. There was only a slight crack in between one of the little bellows there of it. And so I'm not feeling any grime or any grit in here. So I think I'm just going to repack it and put a new boot on it. I don't have a parts washer, otherwise I would put it in a parts washer, but I'll be wiping this thing for days and using 500 rolls of paper towels. But it feels very smooth, so I'm just going to pack it with fresh grease and reinstall it with a new boot, and I should be back in business. I'm good with that. Okay, here's the boot kit that I'm using. It's a genuine OEM, costs about $100, but you know what, I'm not going through all of this and putting a $25 boot on it that's going to last 10,000 miles. This is genuine OEM. It's got Audi written all over it, Volkswagen, Germany, and it's thick and beefy. So this is going to last probably for the rest of the time that I own this car. But it was $100, and they do sell them for like $29, but I wasn't going to do that. Also comes with brand new stainless steel clamps, as well as a new clip. So let's install this boot now. Okay. Alright, there we go. Alright, and it comes with grease, so let's go get the grease. Alright, genuine stuff. Volkswagen, Audi group. Audi, seat, Skoda, Volkswagen. And I'm going to fill up as much as I can. And we'll fill it up, and then let me see. Yep, I am just going to fill the rest of the boot up, the CV joint up with grease from the back side. So now it's full. In the back side of the balls, from this side of the balls, they should be nice and lubricated. Gotta stop. We've got to get this clamp on here first. We don't have the clamp on here. Damn it. Put the clamp on. Get the boot back over. So now the clamp is there. The other clamp, we want to get it on here. And now the boot, we're just going to stick it on here. And we're going to hammer it on there. There we go. Alright, so I got it started. It's on there. Now I just got to hammer it on past that spring. Some excess grease coming out. I'm going to squirt the rest of this grease inside the boot here. It's slippery and messy. Come on. There we go. There we go. Okay, so I know it's seated on that clip. I get a little bit of movement just in between the groove and that clip. So I know it's in there. Can't come out. And now we've got to clamp these one-time use clamps. So you got to make sure you got everything in place. So I don't have the special tool required. So I just took an old pair of vice grips and I just made that kind of a tip on them, so now I can pinch. There, that's tight. That's how that looks. And now we're ready to go back in the car. Kind of wedged it under there, and then by turning the axle I can walk it inside. So now it's in there. Now I just got to line up the bolts. Start putting these 4 square bolts in there. There's one lined up. See if I can't get that started. And I'm just using a screwdriver on this rotor to turn things around. And let me see if I can line up the second one. Alright, I have all 6 of them in. Let's torque them down. Just make sure that tool is in there completely. And just based on how much torque it took to get them out, and again, need a screwdriver to stop the whole thing from rotating. There's one. And then we'll go all the way around, do all 6 of them. Alright, now I've got 2 bolts to install and a third to tighten on the guide or the bracket surrounding this inner joint, and there's the 2 holes right there. I'm going to get my 2 6mm Allen wrenches started in there. And now there's one other one back there that I just need to tighten up a little bit, and for that I'm going to use I'm zoomed in here. I'm just going to use an Allen wrench. Alright, going to put the wheel on now. I'm going to put my fake stud in here, so I'll have something to hang the wheel on. And I'm not fighting with it to get the other wheels started. Alright, now we'll put it back on the ground. And then we'll tighten up this center bolt. We don't want to forget that. Okay, and now that it's on the ground, we got the emergency brake on, and we want to sock this center bolt down pretty good. I'm not exactly sure what the torque spec is. I know it's tight. So I'm going to use a bar for leverage. And based on how much torque it took to get off, that's tight. That ain't coming off. And then the cap. And the car wash next. I think some of this was some of the grease from the CV boot. That's why I actually looked in here, because this wheel was getting really dirty. That's when I spotted the boot. Alright, and so there it is, replacing the front driver's side outer CV boot on a 2010 Audi Q5. That wasn't too bad. Could have been a little easier. I mean, you got to have the right wrench to get that center bolt out of the CV joint to start. I mean, step number one, I would pop the hubcap off, make sure you got the right tool for that. The rest of it wasn't too bad. Hand tools, and probably, you know, without filming it, could have done it in about an hour or so. Hopefully that was helpful to you. If so, please subscribe to the channel, and until next time, thanks for watching.